thank you so much to our SABC News viewers for joining us on another wrap of politics wrap. Of course, I am Natasha Piri, and as we all know that it is Women's Month, August is Women's Month, and we'll be talking about everything in regards to issues that actually women face. And we're actually joined by two amazing and phenomenal women. One is virtually, and of course in studio I'm joined by Karabo Khachau, who is the newly appointed DA spokesperson. Of course, Karabo, you've cut your teeth into politics at a young age. In 2019, you were elected as the youngest MPL, correct me if I'm wrong. And virtually we're joined by Ungobile Mhlongo, who is an EFF parliamentarian. She also cut her teeth into politics at a young age. In 2018, Ngobile, you were the regional secretary of the EFF in Tshwane. And of course, ladies, thank you so much for joining us on SABC News. I think, Karabo, because you're with us in studio, let's just start off with you. Yeah. I think you had a lot of options on your plate. Why did you decide to actually go into politics?
I didn't. Well, thank you for having me firstly, Natasha, and hello to everybody who's viewing. My journey in politics is one that chose me. I didn't dream of becoming a politician. In fact, growing up when my peers used to think I'd be one, I'd be like, no way, those people are liars, they are corrupt, nothing works, politics does not work. But I found myself here, and what drove me here was when I got to UCT in 2016, there's a lot that aggrieved young people. I fundamentally believe that if there's going to be freedom in any land, it has to be expressed to its fullest core. So at institutions of higher learning, and it's sad that even today we still have the same cries, where access to the doors of learning are still kept. We don't have freedom of access there. When you look at the freedom of the curriculum, the kind of the quality of education that young people get, it has been limited. And also finding myself on the other side of Fees Must Fall, opposed to the shutting down of institutions actually. I felt that it was very important for there to be a voice within the doors of decision making, where on the table, outside of just the disruptive nature of what characterizes the politics of young people. I thought it was important to make sure that we have as many people as possible, as many voices as possible, actually holding those who hold the power, who make decisions on how much money gets to be spent on what the constitution would look like in favor for what, on what policy and what legislation is going to dictate the order of our lives. To have as many to have a voice on that, to have a voice, and to have as many of us as women and as young people sitting there. And that's how I ended up in politics.
Interesting. And of course, we'll come to the role of women in policy making. But Ngobile, perhaps with you, I mean, Karabo just told us about her history and how she joined politics at a young age. You were very also instrumental in student politics, very instrumental, of course, in politics there in Tshwane. Why did you choose politics, and perhaps maybe the challenges you face as a female politician?
Thank you very much, Natasha. Greetings to you and greetings to Karabo and all the viewers of SABC. The reason I joined politics at a very young age, Natasha, I was born and grew up in a very small village in Komazi, a rural area, 3 copies and middle class. I was raised between 2 villages. So we were pushing wheelbarrows just to get access to water. So when I moved into Gauteng firstly to visit my grandmother who was a domestic worker, I saw how people in the big cities, especially white people in the big cities, how they live, how they've got access to everything. Whereas us in the villages, we don't have access to a basic thing as water. We have to push a wheelbarrow to get access to water. I decided that this is not a life of a black person that a black person must live. Therefore, we ought to participate in politics, because I then got to understand that it's politicians who decide where service delivery goes and any kind of legislation gets to be passed by politicians. And I wanted to participate in politics because I felt that the way that people in the villages live their life, it is inhuman for a young child to grow up in a village and have to push a wheelbarrow to get access to water. Then when I came to university in 2011, I then participated in student politics, and when the EFF was formed in 2013, I immediately joined board. I felt closer to the EFF because of the message they were preaching: economic freedom in our lifetime, free decolonized education. That's what I wanted for me as a young black person, and as a villager, I saw that if people in the villages can get free access to quality education, decolonized education, in order to better their lives and be able to meaningfully contribute and participate in the economy of this country, is what will bring the country forward. That's how I joined politics. I felt like it's not fair that we are all human beings living as residents and citizens of South Africa. But when you look at how we live between the haves and the have-nots, I felt like this is not something that should be tolerated in a democratic society where two people live as if they are living in different parts of the world, whereas we are living in the same country with the same government, but service delivery in the one community is non-existent, and service delivery in the other community is just so on your face. You even wish, when you look at how service deliveries are in the big city, how white people in the little suburbs live, you're like, whoa, if this could be the life of children and all people in the villages, if we can be given the same quality of life in terms of basic services. Therefore, we should address many of the social ills in society. That's how I became to participate in politics.
Nqobile, do you think that in a democratic... Sorry for cutting in there, but do you think in a democratic society, women are actually well represented in politics?
In a democratic South Africa, look, we are to still have the first black female president of this country. Umama Winnie Madikizela Mandela is actually the president tonight. But if you look into parliamentary representation, council representation, and legislature, and all other political parties, women's voices are not truly represented, but only in the economic freedom fighters. I'll make a practical example. Look at the members of parliament of the EFF. 62% of the members of the National Assembly of the EFF is women. And then when you go to the NCOP on the representation of the EFF, out of the 8 members of NCOP that the EFF has, 6 of them is women. So I think you ought to give it to the EFF that we practice what we preach. We don't speak left and walk right. The EFF has identified women to be at the center of any revolution. Without women, there must not be a table that takes decisions on behalf of women. The EFF has implemented that in the leadership structures of the EFF. More than 50% of the leaders of any structure of the EFF is women, but we still need more to be done. We are very happy with now Ramaphosa finally having appointed Justice Maya as the first female Chief Justice of this country. We're very happy. We will remember that the EFF who advocated for her to be appointed in the first place instead of the compromised Justice Zondo. So there's still a lot that the country needs to do in order. It can't be that 30 years down the line, we still say the first woman to be appointed into this. First woman. At this point, we should be fighting that at least now, since the space of every other aspect of women to be appointed into something, there should be now 50% of women representation everywhere else in this country. But it's not happening.
Okay. Karabo, you heard what Nqobile had to say, and I'm actually interested in this conversation because I want to focus on your party, right? When you look at the current composition of the ministers in the GNU, they're actually more males than females, especially coming from the Democratic Alliance. I think there's one female minister, Siviwe, out of the ministers that you have. And in terms of the deputy ministers, you have 2 female deputy ministers out of 4. Could the DA have not done better? I know it's a government of national unity, everybody needs to be accommodated, but in terms of advancing the interests of women.
No, we can always do better. I would be the first to say there's always room to do better. If South Africa is going to be that which we aspire to be, if it's going to be that which Mama Mandela, that Nqobile speaks about, if it's ever going to be that which she aspired to see, then we'll of course always have to fight to ensure that we have better women representation, not only in government but in the benches of parliament, in our councils and our legislatures. And it's very important for us women, particularly, and I say this as a woman, as a young woman, for us to also be as hungry as men usually are to hold power, because and understand that there's nothing There's nothing that is not of Bosadi. There's nothing that lacks Bosadi and the softness and the femininity of being a woman in power. And we find that not many of us are raised one. Not many of us, particularly, and I could speak for people of color, not many of us come back from communities where being a powerful woman is something that is revered or something that is celebrated. Not many of us grow up in communities or societies where speaking up and being able to champion and hold your fort, champion the interests of women is something that is celebrated. There's always a tip for tat to say, if you're strong enough of a woman, if you're too powerful, then hautonyalwa. If you are too strong, then you are not African enough. Then where's the room there for a man? And so these conversations are a part of what is important for us to have as women, to challenge a status quo, to challenge patriarchy, to make sure that we're able to champion the interests that are for the majority of the population of South Africa, which are women. And so as far as the women who are represented on cabinet as ministers and deputy ministers, Siviwe, Osmimi, and Samantha are absolutely phenomenal women who within their track record of politics have shown that not only are they smart, but they bring more to the table than just their femininity. They bring brains, they bring expertise, they bring heart. When you look at Siviwe and you touch base on what it is that she cares about, it's very clear to see that she cares about the quality of bophelo ba ngwana monyenyana, to ensure that tomorrow the child is more than the poverty that they come from. Make sure, and that's why the first order of business for her is to make sure that we eradicate pit latrines, to make sure that we beef up our capacity to read as young kids. When you look at Osmimi, her heart is making sure that every 1 rand is accounted for, and that's what we've seen her communicate on. To say government expenditure should meet the needs of the people all the time. It cannot be that there's ever a cent that is not spent, particularly because education remains the one key that opens doors to success that still has to speak to women in society. When you look at Samantha's representation in the GNU, when there's no electricity at home, she's the one that's responsible for making sure that not only is there warm water to bath, to go to school and go to work, but that there's food on the table, that in winter there's a cozy home that is beyond just the walls. And that's something that she's very passionate about. So I'm certainly very proud to be from a political party of women of their stature. And as for doing more, we absolutely can do more, and that's why we are here. And that's why, as the Democratic Alliance, we also have a Young Leaders program that seeks to lure in young female leaders who are aspirants, who want to one day be able to sit in positions of power where they get to have a meaningful say and not just be bickering outside and become perpetual activists without actual power matched with the activism. And so it's very important for us to be able to align ourselves with such programs, to avail ourselves of such programs. And I think Ngobile would also agree with me to say it is incumbent on us as well as young girls to open up the doors as much as possible to more young girls who want to be able to sit there and who are tired of growing up in communities where the first smell you acquaint yourself with when you open the door, open the window, is sewage, as is the case in my hometown Velkomo, Kahara Free State. Young girls who are scared to walk at any hour of the day because there are vultures in these streets, men who are supposed to be their safety net, because I guess they're supposed to be leaders, we're supposed to respect them, but we can't anymore because they are vultures. We're not safe in their presence, we're not safe in their eyes, we're not safe in their arms under no circumstance. Where the young girls can look at a police officer and know that this is my protector and this is not my vulture's friend. You know, young girls who are able to be proud to be in a nation where the power of women is celebrated, to be associated with a government that knows that knows how to treat people with dignity and integrity by spending their money right, by ensuring that their needs are accounted for. And that's why we're here. It's very important. And so when we do celebrate the power of women, we should indeed, Natasha, be cognizant of just how far we still need to go and be more serious and thorough in our approach to doing so.
Karabo, you've mentioned the issue of women opening doors for other women, but also a challenge that we have amongst ourselves as women is PhD, the PhD syndrome, pull her down syndrome,
Yes.
coupled with issues of patriarchy. Have you experienced that yourself personally in politics, whether it's within your party or outside of your party?
I have, and it's so sad because I don't know, there's something about politics that creates monsters in human beings. You know, some of the women you look up to, that from the outside, how kopana le ena, you're like, ha, ato hlahaje, ato ha o rate batho, you know, and it's very easy to pick it up when you are as young as I am, because I mean, I'm only 27 now, and I'm serving my second term in the National Assembly, so I'm still a baby. But when I got there, I was more of a baby than I am now, and it's the ability for women in politics to nurture each other, to treat each other with kindness, to love on each other, to still be able to compete healthily but not pull each other down, is something that we still need to work hard towards. You find that in Parliament right now, across benches, you would have female members howling at another female member on a podium on not what she's saying, the substance of what she's bringing to the table, but what she's wearing. And you're like, but Muyela, but why? Why? In this South Africa, our land, are we still finding ourselves in situations where we are not each other's biggest cheerleaders? You'd find a man complimenting me more than Ngobile would, because how dare Ngobile say, Karabo, you are shining, because even me as a woman, I must shine alone. And these are the things that we're saying down with these sort of things too, right? It's very important, and that's why Parliament has a very important platform that has been underutilized actually. That is the Multi-Party Women's Caucus. In the past, that caucus has not really materialized to be that which we need it to be. The conversations at the heart of that caucus agenda are supposed to be how, one, to make Parliament more inclusive for women, two, how to not Parliament as an institution, but even the infrastructure of Parliament. Natasha, you've been to Parliament. You cannot walk on heels there. It's not possible. And it sounds ridiculous for me to say. It sounds like it's something that's very like minute and nobody cares. But the fact that women cannot walk on heels comfortably on Parliament shows you that there's a lot about the institution itself and the power it holds that still excludes women from comfortably participating, right? So that is one. You need to look at two, the whole agenda around how a woman is supposed to dress to Parliament. The dress code has nothing to do with being an honorable member, but has everything to do to be as unsexy as possible towards a man. And it shouldn't be my job as a woman to not be sexy. It shouldn't be my job as a woman to protect myself from a man's interest or their own desires and their ability to self-control. So these are things that we see even outside of the doors of Parliament that we at Parliament are supposed to be dealing with. There's a lot about policy that sits at the table of Parliament that are supposed to be championing the interests of women. It shouldn't be that in today's age, Natasha, that we're still having a chat about girls not having sanitary towels when we have so many women in Parliament who have a multi-party charter, multi-party.
You're stuck in the days of multi-party charter. It's not a GNU. But Karabo, let me just hold you there. Nobile, I just want to bring you into this conversation, and I think the EFF also, has been quite vocal about Chidima Adetshina's, heritage, her nationality. A lot of people, some people saying she must participate in Miss South Africa. Others saying she shouldn't. Presley, what's your view?
My view is that she should be allowed to participate in Miss South Africa. It's funny that 30 years into democracy, the only foreign national that people think is that the nationality of only a black person must be questioned. Now, I'll give you an example. In Parliament, in the benches of the ANC, there used to be a member of Parliament who's Chinese. No one ever questioned her nationality. Why? Because of the color of her skin. Now, whenever a black woman needs to ascend into positions of power, in positions where she's got influence and will play a vital role, there's always question. It's funny how there's certain different bars for women and for men. Now, you will pick up that the people who are questioning her nationality have not even done a simple thing to verify her nationality before they can even comment. Now, what is irresponsible is that we had a minister of sports, arts and culture, commenting without even verifying her nationality. It's a basic thing. It should have been common sense to the minister that let me first verify her nationality before I can even open my mouth. But that's what, as women, we are subjected to in this country, that 30 years down the line, we still have to prove our worth. Every time a woman must do something, we ask, what qualification does he have? What experiences do you have? Now, I even picked it up when Ukarabo was saying, trying to speak about Minister Nosi view, but and the other two deputy ministers, women of the DA, she does not do the same about the male counterparts. What does John Steenhuisen bring to the table? The only thing he brings to the table is that he's a male, a white African male. That's it. That's the only thing. He doesn't have to prove his worth. He doesn't have to bring qualifications. He doesn't have to bring anything. He must just bring his masculinity. Then he ascends to power. He can be a minister. But when it comes to a woman, what does she have? She can't just be beautiful. What is she bringing? She must bring a PhD, like a deputy minister for Mimi. That's what she must bring. Why? Because she's an African woman. She must always prove her worth. We must ask her, what do you bring on the table? Now, the other thing I want to comment about is the issue of pull and trap. I totally disagree. There's no such a thing. Women love one another. Women don't pull each other down. What happens is patriarchy. The men of this country, men in society in general, they connive to bring women down and then plant seeds that it is women who hate one another. It's not true. Ask any man you meet, Natasha, what are they afraid of when they walk the street in the night? They are afraid of other men. You can't meet a man who says, I'm afraid of driving at night when I've got an emergency because I think I might be hijacked by a woman. No. The men get to be hijacked by other males. Males get to be raped by males. Women get to be raped by males. Who kills women and kidnaps women and children? It's males. So it's not true that women connive against one another to bring each other down. It is males. Any person who's alive, ask them what is the most thing they fear the most. They fear other men. If you are a woman walking the streets at night or even during the day and you see 4 men approaching you in the same street, you get to even change the direction. Why? Because you are afraid. So I don't believe that story that women pull each other down. As women who are always fixing each other's crown. That's why when there's positions available, it is us as women who jump at the opportunity to defend each other and say, no, this is our queen, let's fix her crown. So it is men who always bring women down in this country. It is the men of the NC who refuse for Mama Winnie Madikizela Mandela to become the first female president of this country. It is always men who connive to bring women down. Look at lastly that I want to comment about. Look at the issue of former public protector advocate Busisiwe Mkhwebane. It was the male chairperson in that.
Nobile, unfortunately. Ngobil, I'm so sorry. Unfortunately, we've run out of time. I also wanted to ask a question to Ukarabo, but I guess all good things have to come to an end. I'm so sorry, ladies. We will have these conversations on a daily. We're back on next week, Monday. But of course, I leave you in the capable hands of Mbali Tetani.
Much, Natasha. Really a very engaging conversation there, of course, as we celebrate Women's Month. And as you heard, Natasha will be back again with the Politics Wrap on Monday.